my mouth and meditation of my heart, be ever mindful of thee, O Lord, my strength and my salvation. Amen. Please be seated. Except for Darby and Emma Claire. Emma Claire just finished summer camp, and Darby was earlier last month, or this month, last month, to Camp Wingman along with Andrew Tanner from our congregation. And I just want to welcome them back. I know I've seen pictures on the internet, and your grandmother and grandfather had shared them. Friends, Camp Wingman is one of the best things we do for the young people in this congregation. We send any child who wishes in this congregation to the diocesan youth camp, and it's a great experience. And they're going to tell you all about it when they feel like it. And hopefully we'll have some pictures in the coming weeks to share at coffee hour. But welcome back, girls. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm going to hit my Bible today. Donnie Radcliffe told me in our Bible study, I don't talk about hell enough. So if you don't like this sermon, blame Donnie. I'm going to talk about why all you people are going to go to hell. I sound like Ross Perot, don't I, all you people? But actually, I'm going to start my journey to hell by talking about my wife and children. I'm a wonderful husband. I was a better boyfriend. I got to tell you this. I so love. I have always worshipped my wife, Susan. When we were in college, Susan is not a morning person. I am. It's a good thing we didn't get married till she was in college, because I love the morning. I'm alive, I'm powerful. It's about 10:30 or so she starts to function. And she would have this one class, Russian literature, and I would drive over her to her dormitory and wait for her to come down at about 10:15, and she would sort of come down like Gloria Swanson in the movie Sunset Strip, like walking like the Bride of Frankenstein or somebody who has a terrible hangover. And I'd drive her to her class for Russian literature in the morning. And I'd sit in my car and I'd do some homework while she was there, imbibing in Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. Well, the time came for the exams, and Susan got all panicked, because the teacher said, we're going to focus on Anna Karenina and War and Peace. Be prepared. And Susan had read Anna Karenina, but she never quite got around to reading War and Peace. And the exam is the next day. So we went around to every Blockbuster video in the county till we located the Aubrey Hepburn version of War and Peace. And she aced the exam. She never actually has read War and Peace, but she's going to tell you exactly what Aubrey Hepburn was wearing at the burning of Moscow. Genetics and reading tell. Because 20-odd years later, in 8th grade, my daughter Claudia Conger had all year to read The Red Badge of Courage. And finally, the day before the exam comes, she comes to me all crying, Daddy, tell me what this is about. And I said, better yet, Bunny, we'll go to Blockbuster. And we watched, and she fell asleep before it finished. So we had to prep her on the way to school the next morning. And Audie Murphy survives and is the hero. The youth that survived and the hero. Did you all have to read The Red Badge of Courage? I know in my generation, everybody in high school had to read that book. It's about the Civil War. It's considered the first great American modern war novel. It was written in the 1888, I believe, or early 1890s, long after the Civil War. But it was really the first war novel in America that, if you will, took the psychological, internal viewpoint for the hero. The war novels before this had been about the victory, about the courage, about the bravery. Good stuff, John Wayne stuff. But this was the first modern where you see the tension, you see the inside thinking of the hero who starts out, he runs, he's a coward at the beginning of the book. But he overcomes his faithlessness, and in faithfulness leads the charge to storm the Confederate redoubt at the very end. When I was young, I remember going to a school school trip, they would have these traveling exhibitions. I don't think they do that anymore, of memorabilia. And I remember going down to downtown Philadelphia to see a display on Abraham Lincoln of all these documents and statues and paintings and pictures and flags and uniforms. And as a young boy, this was very, very impressionable upon, as an old man, it'd be very impressionable upon me. But it touched me in a way, and one thing I remember from one of these trips was a letter that was displayed in a glass box. And it was said that this letter is believed to have been the inspiration for Stephen Crane's novel, The Red Badge of Courage. And the letter said, and it was headlined, Washington, D.C., the White House, October 1864. And it said, I, Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States, hereby give this pass to Private Roswell McIntyre, Company E of the 6th New York Cavalry. This is his pass to return to his unit, and if he fulfills his obligations and is discharged faithfully, his crime of desertion will be erased from the record. Signed, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States. On the edge of the letter was a little annotation from the Quartermaster Depot in New York City, granting this man passage down to Baltimore. And at the very foot of the letter was a little notation saying this letter was taken from the body of R. McIntyre after the Battle of Five Forks in Virginia in 1865. Here was a man who ran away. He left his duty. He was unfaithful to the call to serve his country. He ran back to New York City, and the President of the United States gave him a free pass in return for his faithfulness. This was displayed prominently in the years after Lincoln's death, reprinted in magazines and newspapers, and people, scholars say that though Stephen Crane wrote his own novel about the book of Red Badge of Courage, perhaps the idea of faithfulness, faithlessness, and faithfulness arose from this letter from Abraham. This is the theme of our Old Testament reading this morning. This is the story of Hosea and Gomer, which is probably one of the most disliked, hated books in the Bible. Because if you read it on one level, God is a really nasty piece of it. The story begins, Hosea the prophet at the time of King Jeroboam in the northern kingdom is commanded by God to marry a harlot and to have children of whoredom. And so Hosea goes and marries Gomer. Next time we hear Gomer, he's in the U.S. Marine Corps. I always thought that was a strange name for a private in the Marine Corps. But if you will, Moby Dick, Captain Ahab. Ahab, it's an evil name too. So maybe they just like the sound. Hosea is commanded to marry Gomer, and he loves Gomer. And they have a child together, and the Lord commands him to name his child Jezreel. Now, Jezreel is a plain. It's a place where the armies of Israel had defeated the enemy and scattered the Philistines. Jezreel means God scatters. And it's a place and a verb and a name. And this child was named Jezreel at the command of God. Then two more children are born, a girl and a boy. But these children are not identified as Gomer's children of whoredom. Hosea is not the father. Gomer has gone wild, gone astray. She's fallen into the culture and the time and the place of her world where sex was just sex. It didn't mean anything. And if it meant something, it was part of the worship of Baal, of the fertility cults, of the pagans surrounding Israel. It was the thing to do. And Gomer has two children, and the Lord commands the first child to be named not pitied, not loved. And the second child is a girl, And that girl is named Not My Child. My friends, when I was a little boy, and my mother was one of my Sunday school teachers when I was tiny, and my mother was on the curriculum for the Episcopal Church that year, and she absolutely despised this book. How could God command someone to marry a harlot, a whore? How could God allow a child who is not guilty of their parents' adultery, fornication, to go through life saying, not loved, not pitied, not mine? And for 2,000 years, the church and the synagogues have been debating, what does this mean? Are these real people? Or is this a story about a real man and woman, Hosea and Gomer, that has been turned into a parable? Because the story continues in chapter 1 in our reading of all the devastation of harlotry, abandoning God, throwing yourself into the world around you of sin and sensation and sex. It's not new, and it's not Southern California. This is the world of 700 BC in Israel, tossing yourself into the filth that is the culture around you, because everybody's doing it. Yet Hosea still loves Gomer. And he loves her and is faithful to her, but he tells her, unless you turn around, death and destruction are yours. These are not my children. You've run away and left me with the children of another man that you bore. I will still be faithful to these children, be a father to them, even though I'm going to call them not mine and not loved. Unless you turn around and are faithful, God will destroy you for your adultery, your harlotry, your running after false gods. That's where our reading stops this morning, which is always a cheerful thing. But if you go to chapter 2, you see that the sin and the listing of sins and warnings of destruction and devastation are there. But also, Hosea is saying to Gomer, I still love you. No matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, you cannot break the love that I have for you. Come back. Come home to your children. Come back to me. And all will be forgiven. And by the end of this reading, Gomer comes home. And this section ends, the child named not loved is now named loved. And the child named not my child is now named my child. People like John Calvin and Martin Luther says, this change of names, this God calling Hosea to marry someone whom God knows is going to turn out bad, is an evidence that this is a parable. There may be a real Hosea, there may be a real Gomer, but this story of faithlessness and faithfulness is the story of God and his people. And we read in Paul's letter to the Romans, in Peter's first letter, Hosea and Gomer are raised up as an example of God's faithfulness no matter how wicked and evil we become. The Lord loves you more than your capacity to sin. The Lord wants you. He longs for you. His heart aches for you as Hosea's heart aches for Gomer. And the choice is yours. The choice is Gomer's. Come back. The Lord will forgive you your sins, but you've got to come back and you've got to ask for it. If you don't, the path is the road to destruction and death. Friends, I don't think this is a real story in the way that, say, the stories of David and Bathsheba are. I believe Hosea and Gomer are real people, but I believe their story and their difficulties in life and marriage, her unfaithfulness, their reconciliation were used by the prophet to tell a story about God's love for his people.
that no matter how far they stray, they're still loved. So on a surface level, this is a highly upsetting and highly offensive story. And I don't think God, the Lord tells us, Jesus tells us repeatedly that the sins of the parents are not visited upon the children. And this is the same God, the same teaching. And would that be true if your children are named not loved, not pitied, not mine? I think it's a parable. Don't read it as a denunciation of women, or a denunciation of, or just cruelty of an uncaring, unfeeling God. It's a powerful story, a parable about the heart, and that God's heart has no limits to his love for you. But you've got to be like Conger. We all have to be like Conger and choose love, choose life, choose to return to God. I read the story of Hosea in this way, of a God whose faithfulness is far greater than my ability to be a sinner, my ability to run away. Friends, no matter where you've been in your life, no matter what you've done, no matter how dark it may seem, no matter I was raised as a typical, if you will, northeastern wasp. You don't show emotions, and we never speak about Great Uncle Clarence. Great Uncle Clarence may come to Thanksgiving dinner and be drunk out of his mind and be a really nasty SOB, but we never speak of it. We compartmentalize and close it and never ever allow it to surface. I guess you could say conflict avoidance. I don't pick fights. I don't like to fight. I like to close off, like Uncle Clarence, into his own little room, the problems of the past. And maybe I can forget them. But the Lord knows those problems. You've got to open those doors, those hurts, those pains to the Lord. Where you've been a victim, where you've been hurt, where you've been a perpetrator, you've got to open those doors to Jesus Christ. God loves you. I've been involved in helping abuse victims, men my age, who were abused long ago by clergymen. And I've been helping them pastorally, and I've also been helping them in the life of the church by following the reports and doing all the things to see that justice is done. And one of the things that was said to one of these men who are my age is that dirty things happen to dirty boys. This was told during an abuse 50 years ago. And this man is my age. And what does he remember of the abuse? Dirty things happen to dirty boys. What does that mean? He is a victim. He is at fault because he's dirty and not worthy of love. This is an extreme case, friends. But I think it's true of all of us. I know I don't feel worthy of God's love, of his forgiveness, of his power. But it's there nonetheless. God is not a creation of my own imagination or being. God loves me far more than I can even conceive. I don't think it's possible for anyone to love anything more than I love my wife and my children. But God's love for me is 10 million times greater, and that's just the surface. Open your heart to Jesus. Those pains, that hurt, that brokenness. You may call yourself loved. You may call yourself not God's child. The Lord wants you to